The views and opinions expressed on this program do not reflect the company, owners, management, staff, clients, or partners.
It's Wednesday, the 16th day of June, 2021. Welcome to the Daily Hour, brought to you by Medical House One Communications and Linda's. I'm Jamal Hartman, along with Michaela Ian and Leanna Lambert, who will be bringing you the news break a bit later. But how are you this morning, Chaos? You got?
I do not have coffee. I have no coffee. So I do this thing where like I make my coffee the night before and I make it like super concentrated. And then in the morning I'll put it in the fridge overnight and then I'll have iced coffee. My lovely son was cleaning the dishes, dumped my pot of coffee down the sink because he thought it was old. And that was like my last batch and I was going to buy a new bag today. So I'm just like surviving on a green smoothie and water this morning. So this should be fun.
You aren't gonna beat us up this morning, are you? You good, right? You okay, right?
I'm gonna fake it till I make it.
All right. We're cool, Lee. We're cool. She's just not gonna take us up. Thanks so much for making us part of your daily routine. We have another good one today as we welcome Don Burgess on to discuss journalism, especially during the pandemic. The Daily Play is a say it, don't sing it. So Kales will be guessing the lyrics to I would say it's a summer classic. It's a summer classic.
All right.
But look, I just want, before we get into today's topic, I was watching Good Day Bermuda earlier, right? And I don't know if this shows my age or not, right? But they were speaking about security in schools, right? And Terry and Jackie, they're not that much younger than me. I think I got about like 6 years on them, right?
But, no. Terry's 4 years younger than me, and I'm 4 years younger than you.
Okay, well, I'm 6 years.
I'm not sure how old Jackie is.
Jackie said she's 32 this morning, so I've got about 7 years on it then. Okay, cool. So, damn, you just couldn't let me have that one. Like, you just like really.
Well, because I think you're not doing the math correctly because you're trying to perceive younger.
I mean, yeah, let a brother have it. You know, she just done me in, folks. Look at that. So how old are you, Kale?
I'm 35.
Okay, yeah. You did say 5 years. I was hoping you forgot my age, but
I know how old you are. I know when your birthday is.
and then I'll be 5 years older than her for about 3 months, folks. But anyway, enough about it. See, this is what you all don't have to get to the shaming and stuff. You just don't have to do it. And then I do forget. Honestly, I do like.
I believe Nikki. I do.
It wasn't a lie. Like I legit would be asked at places we go, and I would say something, and they'd be like, "Just like, no, you're not." Da 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 da. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. But when I turn 40, it'll be easy to remember, and I'll be proud because making it to 40 is a great thing. But they were talking about on Good Day Bermuda, folks. If you haven't watched it, check them out. Security, as if it's this weird thing, like they don't know what school was like before having security, and I'm like. I was in school when they started putting security in the schools. And I was just like, how old am I compared to these guys where they've never been to like middle or high school? Mind you, I didn't go to middle, but high school without security. I felt like they were talking about like some security prison that they were in. So it was just interesting how close in age we were, but how different the generations were.
Yeah, because I went to BI when I lived in Bermuda. There was no security. I then left Bermuda when I was 12. We moved to Massachusetts. My school there did not have security. I was there for 5 years, I want to say. No security at all. I don't even think my university had security now that maybe. They must have. They must have had security.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's a different time, so I guess schools in Bermuda, security is like having teachers and additional staff, right? All right, let's get to the conversation. Good morning to you as well. Thanks for tuning in from Maryland. Good morning to everyone. We
Morning,
appreciate the support for sure. So thank you for making us part of the daily routine. Let's get into the conversation. And before we even talk about it, for those who don't watch it, I've queued it up. So I want you to watch this clip from last night's press conference, so you kind of get an idea of what's going on and where the discussion is going. All right, folks. So check it out.
My last question, what, I guess for you, Premier, what will happen when people are abroad and filling out their travel authorization, not vaccinated and don't have their prepaid quarantine hotel? Will they not be allowed to return to their homes, or will they incur a fine?
I think the Minister of Health has spelled out the requirements in order to get a travel authorization. And there will also, of course, be, I would say, fines that would be part of any violations of what is required inside of law. Minister of Health or Minister of National Security, I don't know if you want to speak any further. But I think we've laid out the things in entirety. Minister?
Yeah, that's correct. Trevor, the provisions under the legislation will require that everyone that is returning to Bermuda will be required to upload a travel authorization. The Minister of National Security rightfully outlined what are the documents that will be required for that travel authorization, and one such document would be a confirmation that they have prepaid for the hotel, unless they fall into one of the three exempted categories that I spoke about a few moments ago.
If they fall outside of those categories, what happens?
Persons will not be permitted to return to Bermuda in the absence of completing the travel authorization.
That's what I wanted to hear you say. Thank you.
I said it earlier. I'll repeat it. TA is important. You'll see the regulations will speak to that you are required to complete the travel authorization before arriving to Bermuda.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah. That was interesting, and I really say I respect that Trevor pushed that, because it's one thing to infer something or to make an assumption based on something that someone said, but to get her to actually say persons who have not prepaid for their 14-day quarantine stay, if they don't fall under the exempted categories, will not be allowed to return to Bermuda. I'm interested in the legal ramifications of this.
Folks, what are your thoughts on Minister Kim Wilson's comments? Because I echo what Michaela just said. I would love a lawyer to explain to me if this is even legal.
Yeah.
I'm not a lawyer, and I'm definitely not an immigration expert. But I kind of find it hard to believe that anyone at Customs and Immigration could deny a Bermudian entry into the country. I think everyone has the same questions. Carla John saying, is that even legal? Sam Cat plays Jamal, you choosing violence today. No, she chose it. She chose it.
Yeah.
I don't. Elizabeth Farrell says, were they going to deport Bermudians to the UK? Hillary once again. I wish we had the governor coming on after that statement.
I know. I'd love to know from a constitutional point of view, is this even legal? I don't see, because I remember last year there was a whole thing coming up about the Constitution because they wanted everyone, including Bermudians, to be tested before they come. But then it was a constitutional thing because you can't deny a Bermudian entry into their own country. So I don't understand how this is working. Are we rewriting the Constitution here? Like, I really want to know the legal ramifications, because I don't see it going well. I don't see it going well when people come back, if they haven't, but like, I don't see it. Because obviously, if you're a Bermudian and you don't have rights or privilege to reside in the US or another country or wherever you came from, you can't just stay there. So like,
I am legit confused, and I was hoping, Michaela, I was hoping that we understood it wrong. Maybe we don't get what she really meant, and I want to let me just go back and props to Media Maya as well for grabbing this for me. Because I did ask what were the exemptions that she was referring to, and it says the exemptions from the quarantine hotel are limited to unaccompanied minors aged 17 years or younger on the date arriving in Bermuda, medically vulnerable certified by a licensed physician, psychologist, or local health insurer, and caregivers of medically vulnerable travelers. These persons will still be required to quarantine and will have checks to ensure they are quarantining at home. Minor children, those under 18, will follow a traveler's first 14 days for children unless they or their parents are returning home from boarding school, for example. So props credit to Media Maya for getting that to me last evening. Appreciate her always. But go ahead, Kate.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, when they first put out this 14-day mandatory quarantine, there were other restrictions, not other restrictions, other categories. So for instance, if I travel with my son as a fully immunized person, my son isn't old enough for the vaccine, then he can quarantine with me at home. And then they said people over 65 as well could quarantine at home. So I'm just confused about how we are telling people that they cannot enter their own country if they haven't paid for a 14-day quarantine stay. Like, it's just, I don't know, man.
Yeah, let's go to some comments, see what everyone's saying. Michelle White says, I thought Bermudians could not be refused entry. That was discussed months ago.
Yep.
Kathy Gumby Kills.
Sure. I do hope people in jabbed people have a lot of money. I think she means people who aren't vaccinated.
Amanda Kelly says, isn't she a lawyer or is this
See that there.
I'm not doing that. You all nope. Tamara Richardson says, I'm on East Coast time today. It's too early to be angry. Sean Smith says, so what happens if you're deported from a country back to Bermuda? Monica Dunstan says it's a human rights violation in my opinion. Anika DeShields and Karen Edwards kills.
If they make it legislation, that is a law, which makes it legal. Legal doesn't mean right. But if it's legislation, is the legislation directly in contravention of the Constitution? That's what I'm interested in from a legal point of view.
Interesting.
I thought you could not deny a Bermudian entry into their country of origin, right?
Elizabeth Varel says, thing is, you can't even leave without prepaying for the hotel, but I'm sure people will somehow leave without applying for one. So you cannot deny Bermudians entry, period. This is a real test of the Constitution and legalities and legislation. Tamara Richardson, how is it possibly legal to leave a citizen in a foreign country outside of their home country? Michelle, Christina, and Charles Kales.
Sure, let's call it a scare tactic from what I get from it. Yeah. Charles H. Jeffers II says they won't be able to board a plane without a travel authorization form.
Yeah, but that's the thing, though. We're help us out, Charles. I know you're not a lawyer, but you probably have more understanding of this. So what you're saying is, if someone doesn't submit a travel authorization form to the airline prior to departure, that the airline are the ones that will deny them on behalf of Bermuda. Again, is that even, constitutionally, can that be done?
So yes, because that's what's been done this entire time. Since the airport reopened last July, everyone who travels to Bermuda has to fill out this travel authorization form and upload it within whatever the time period is. So a fully vaccinated person would upload this travel thing. I assume they would upload their vaccination certificate with it. But then it's interesting because there was a press conference a couple of weeks ago where the premier, I can't remember if it was the premier or the minister of, I want to say it was the minister of national security. And she said that you don't have to prepay for the quarantine hotel before you leave Bermuda, but you have to pay for it before you depart wherever you went to come back, which is kind of like the same thing, right? So.
Sam Cat Place says, yes, which is why they need to her in that position to twist the law to their advantage and take away our rights. She is being used and drinking the tea. Carla John asks a question that's been asked for weeks. What if you can't afford 2 weeks in a hotel? Will you be put in prison? If so, for how long? Well, I mean, a prison stay. I remember when I was young, you would always see certain people off the streets. They would try to get to prison so they can get that good Christmas meal. Maybe that is an alternative for some people. Dijon Simmons, it's just another episode of Dijon, that's what I'm going with as I play devil's advocate in these ridiculous situations. I said it, what was it, yesterday? I'm like, maybe it's just miscommunication. Maybe. No, but he's being facetious. And at the end of the day, like, we can't keep making these excuses saying it's a breakdown in communication because, again, like I said to you earlier, Kales, maybe we just didn't understand it. Maybe it's all of us. We're the problem.
No, I don't think so, because she clearly said that if Bermudians who are unvaccinated do not book their quarantine hotel, don't pay for it, they won't be allowed into the country. And like I said, there's a difference between inferring, there's a difference between making an assumption. She said that after Trevor pushed her on it. She said that. So I don't think it's miscommunication. I think this is the hard line that they're choosing to stick with. And I just want to know the legal ramifications. Like, I want to know if constitutionally, as a Bermudian, if I was not vaccinated and I did not book this hotel, can I be denied entry into my own country? Because that's just, I don't know.
Renee Charlene Simmons says, total nonsense. Where did she get her law degree? Oh my goodness. Woo. Wow. I'm just reading the comments. So a Bermudian will become a man without a country because of this travel restriction. Unbelievable. Oh my word.
Yeah.
Monica, I think it's strong arming and scare tactics. Go ahead, Kale. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think it's I think we have to remember that I don't believe Kim Wilson, as the Minister of Health, has it under her remit to create laws for Bermuda. That falls under the AG and the AG Chambers, which is led by Kathy Lynn Simmons. So I don't think the Minister of Health is drafting the laws. Maybe she's giving her input on them, but she's not responsible for that, even though she is a lawyer as the Minister of Health.
Let's try to get through as many of these comments as possible. We have a lot. We're not going to get through all of them, so we'll do our best to get through some, folks. Charles H. Jeffers Saxon says, that's correct, Jamal. No TA, no boarding. So, okay, I mean, that's how they're going to do it. I kind of understand it. I'm not necessarily sure the audience agrees. Kales, let's take these last couple. Janae Paredes.
Sure. When I left Bahamas end of January, at check-in, they asked for my travel authorization, as the airlines are all aware of the Bermuda rules. Yeah.
Elizabeth.
How do you apply for a travel authorization form when you leave Bermuda? Isn't it supposed to be done 3 days before you return? So no, that's different. The travel authorization form, you don't apply for that before you leave Bermuda. You apply for that I think it has to be uploaded within 24 hours before you return back to the island. But the travel authorization form and booking the mandatory 14-day hotel, those are two completely different things. But you need both if you are returning to the island as an unvaccinated Bermudian or resident.
Okay. Tanika Eve says, everyone don't panic. A rescinded statement will most likely be released soon, don't you think? Well, keep in mind, last year, November, when this same minister had stated, I think it was Don Burgess, who's on today, that asked the question, but she had stated about vaccine passports, something in regards to TSA. And I ran the clip on this show, right? Ran the clip because she didn't rescind the statement, right? And we can go back and watch. She actually almost doubled down and said, well, this is what I said, and that's not what she said. So the arrogance of this particular minister doesn't sit well with me when it comes to making statements. So I don't think it will be rescinded. I think she's done quite a decent job of standing by her words. And again, let me be clear. When it comes to this particular minister, no, I don't like her. But this is not about me not liking her. This is about her statements that are taking place. So I don't want anyone, his picking on. No, I'm not picking on her. This is something that she stated last night that people had issues with. So we're discussing it. So it has nothing to do with how I feel. Tamara Richardson, Kills.
You apply and get immediate approval, then get an email saying you're denied if you don't have test results. All this time, a resident could return with that and pay the $300 fine / testing bracelet fee. It's all very confusing. I agree. It is very confusing.
And Renita Gorham says, it doesn't matter if you have a vaccine card. Kids just returned home, and JetBlue tried to forbid the oldest child from getting on plane because Bermuda government didn't update her COVID-19 test. Oh my goodness, that sounds crazy.
Yeah.
That sounds crazy. All right, so look, let's bring Leanna in. Lee's probably got let me just, Nikki Hartman says, airlines have been turning people away from boarding for various countries for months now. Well, I haven't had the privilege of traveling, so
Me either.
some people travel for a living. Let's see what Lee, it's a hot one this morning, Lee. It's a hot one, and it seems like I'm gonna go with Dijon. I'm gonna be facetious and say I think it's just a breakdown in communication, what the minister meant. But I think just to touch on the last comment that I read there, I think the difference here, it's not about airlines denying people entry. It's about people who are status Bermudians. I'm not going to say citizen because truthfully, there's no such thing as a Bermudian citizen. But status Bermudians, residents being denied entry to the only country that they can legally reside in. I really hope that someone can help me understand what is this, as Michaela said, constitutionally okay. It's a tough one. And I don't even want to put you in a space, Liana, where I ask you where you stand.
All I was going to say, honestly, and good morning to both of you. All I was going to say is I'm going to sit back and watch this play out.
I think that's a look.
Yes.
Sips tea, right? Well, Lee, I'm going to go to the news break with Leanna, everyone. And after that, we'll have the movement moment, a very good one with Tamara. Then we'll go to commercial break and come back with our guest for the day, Don Burgess. So, Lee, over to you.
Thanks, Jamal and Michaela. And good morning to all of our listeners. We have made it halfway, so happy Wednesday to everyone. I hope everyone is having a great start to their day, despite this rainy weather we are experiencing this morning. I'm Leanna Lambert, and it's time for our daily hour news break. Let's take a look at what's in today's top stories. Well, it's been a very, very, very long time coming, but this Sunday, we will finally see an end to almost all COVID-19 restrictions, with the exception of just 2 regulations that will remain in place. Now, mask wearing in indoor public spaces and gatherings of more than 100 people will be the only restrictions that the public must adhere to. However, we will see an end to mask wearing outdoors, and curfew will finally come to an end. As you know, mandatory quarantine will still come into effect as of Sunday. Now, Premier David Burt made what some might call joyous news yesterday during a press conference along with the Minister of Health, Kim Wilson, saying that patience was growing thin and with restrictions and lockdowns, but he highlighted that many countries still had restrictions because of highly transmissible variants. Now, more than 10 people could still sit at a table at restaurants, and the land and sea restrictions would cease. Mr. Burt highlighted that people on social and traditional media had become louder and louder and less civil over time. While he said he understood public anger, the Premier maintained that he had sworn an oath to keep Bermuda safe and that safety would always outweigh expediency. Now, only 1 new case of COVID-19 was recorded yesterday, which brought the total number of cases to 5, with 1 person in hospital. Hotel workers who are not vaccinated against COVID-19 will be expected to get tested for the coronavirus every 7 days from next Tuesday, the Bermuda Hotel Association had announced yesterday. The BHA said that hotel industry was a key employer and wishes to ensure that they exercise a heightened level of care for the safety of everyone as they seek to successfully achieve the reopening of our tourism economy. The policy is in line with the government's mandatory quarantine restrictions for non-immunized travelers. The island's strict COVID regulations, they say, were the cause for cruise line giant Royal Caribbean International scrapping plans to send cruise ships to Bermuda this summer. Now, the RCI's Freedom of the Seas and Enchantment of the Seas were scheduled to make 21 visits each to Bermuda from July to October, But with protocols in place, such as government's insistence that all passengers had to be vaccinated, the RCI confirmed last week that the itinerary had been cancelled. The Transport Minister Lawrence Scott said that other destinations only required a proportion of passengers to be vaccinated, which made them more attractive to cruise lines. However, Mr. Scott defended the hard line on vaccinations and insisted that public safety could not be compromised despite the CDC regulations being less strict than Bermuda. He said, quote, "When it comes to the health and the safety of the country and the health risks, we are not willing to compromise on that," end quote. Now, Freedom of the Seas had been rerouted and will spend the summer sailing to the Bahamas, while Viking Orion, which will operate at 50% capacity, will spend 5 days at sea before it returns to the island. And those traveling to and from the East End will be affected by traffic delays, potentially for the rest of the summer, due to work scheduled by Belco. Now, the Public Works Ministry said that Harrington Sound Road near Quarry Road in Hamilton Parish will be closed to traffic on Saturday and Sunday so that Belco trench work can cross over from the eastbound lane to the westbound lane. A stretch of the road between Quarry Road and Wilkinson Avenue, also in Hamilton Parish, will have one lane closed from June 22nd all the way to September 3rd to allow a new road surface to be laid. The Quarry Road will be carried out between 8 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. from Monday to Friday each day. Motorists are asked to avoid the area and use alternative routes until the work is completed. Now, looking at today's weather, we have a high near 79 and a low near 73 degrees. Early sunny periods will return to cloudy with showers thereafter. A complex system moves closer to the island, bringing showers today. Showery activity will continue to increase Thursday into Friday morning as the main frontal boundary passes. Conditions then begin to rapidly settle Friday afternoon as high pressure returns. That's all for our daily hour news break. Let's head back to Jamel and Michaela in the studio for today's Daily Focus.
Thanks so much for that, Lee. We have to run do the movement moment, but thank you. We definitely a hot one today. Is a really it's a kitchen that if you're not a chef, you definitely want to be very far away from it, right?
I want to be far away from it today.
You stay dry out there in that rain, and we'll chat to you tomorrow.
Sure. Bye, guys. Bye, Kayla.
Bye, Lee.
All righty. Let's go check the movement moment, and we will be. What happened to the movement moment? Let's check out the movement moment with Tamara Donnell, and then we'll be back to speak with Don Burgess, journalist who has covered the pandemic from the beginning. Here you go.
This movement moment brought to you by People's Pharmacy. Together, we can illuminate your path to wellness.
Welcome to today's movement moment with Tamara Donnell, brought to you by People's. Tamara, what are we discussing today?
Good morning, Jamal. Today we will carry on from last week's discussion on vitamin D3, its relation to the sun and its importance to our overall health. We briefly touched on vitamin D3 and its role. It is important to state that exposure to the sun must be done in a healthy, balanced way. The sun is definitely dangerous to some of us, especially with prolonged regular exposure. So everything that we say when we talk about the importance of the sun, we must keep in mind the need for moderation, as with so many things, including water and obviously sleep, right? So nothing I say is meant to be an all or nothing type approach. But I just wanted to go back to how vitamin D3 is synthesized. Such a hard word to say over and over. So the sun's ultraviolet B rays, which are available to us at certain points in the day, depending on where we are in the earth, depending on our latitude, the ultraviolet B rays, when they hit our skin, the cholesterol that's in our skin, a certain type of cholesterol, is turned into the precursors for vitamin D3 in the body. So vitamin D3 is not even really a vitamin. I like to refer to it as a hormone just because of the way it acts on our body. It is not available in any of the foods naturally. It's added to many of our foods because of its importance to bone health. I guess back in the day when it was first discovered, deficiencies in vitamin D3 manifested in many different bone conditions. So it was added to our milk. It was like many of our foods are fortified with it. But as I mentioned, it is available to us naturally through healthy sun exposure. And recent evidence has shown that vitamin D3's benefits go far beyond bone health. There are receptors for vitamin D in many of our tissues and in many of our organs, including the prostate, the heart, blood vessels, and the like. So vitamin D3 now is thought of as a basic building block to our immune health. It is important for so many things that we will go into for the following moments for the rest of the month. But right now, it's just important that we accept that hiding from the sun is no longer good for us. It's definitely no longer good for people with highly pigmented skin, so darker skinned, non-white skin. We synthesize far less vitamin D during the same amount of sun exposure as white skin. So we definitely need to make some time to uncover our skin, meaning, don't go out in long sleeve shirts wrapped from head to toe. We need to uncover our skin and spend some moderate time in the sun at the right time of day so that we can bring back what our bodies were evolved to need.
Thank you for tuning into this movement moment. To enjoy the benefits of the full episode, check us at Instagram at MVMT with Tamra Donnell or at People's BDA.
All right. Thanks again to Tamra for that. Real quickly on that note, vitamin D, I did not begin taking vitamin D until the pandemic. And when I went for my physical, I remember the doctor actually taking antivitamins, and I told her, and she's like, why did you start taking it? And I said, because I don't get outside enough. I work indoors. So I'm not out in the sun. So that's very helpful. And again, I would say to anyone, consult your doctor before just going out and doing anything. Going to take a quick break. We'll be back with Don Burgess. Do not go anywhere.
Hi, I'm Karen, a nurse at the old folks home. These long hours used to kill my feet until my hairdresser told me about a great place to buy a pair of clogs. Medical House. Finally, relief. They also carry uniforms in bright, bold colors. And not to mention the support stocking.
Karen, Miss Soltis bet her bet again.
Oh gosh, these days, I need all the support I can get.
Medical House has relocated next to the Dendy Town Field, number 6 Bakery Lane, Pembroke.
We're spotlighting our old friends Woodstock Farms, who started up 50 years ago in the belief that we need more trustworthy natural food sources. Starting with one product, their line, mostly certified organic, is now more than 250 strong in 10 categories. This month we're featuring accoutrements of the barbecue, for us the pinnacle of home cuisine and one of the few forms of restorative recreation now within our reach. Try Woodstock Organic Sweet Relish, Tomato Ketchup, Baby Kosher Dill Pickles, Sauerkraut, and Hickory and Original Barbecue Sauce. Lindo's. Why go anyplace else?
All right, welcome back to the big show. Michaela Ian, I'm Jamal Hartman. It's the Daily Hour brought to you by Medical House, One Communications, Lindo's, and our friends over at Channel 82, where you can stream this and many other locally produced shows. It's a hot one today. It's a hot one. And I think Don Burgess is the perfect person to join the conversation at this point, as we were speaking about a place where he's been in attendance pretty much over the last 13, 14 months on a weekly, sometimes bi-weekly basis. So Don Burgess, welcome to the show. We are lucky to have you. Good morning.
Good morning. And Jamel, if it makes you feel any better, I'm about 20 years older than you. So
you don't look a day over me, man. Come on. So Don, look, for those who don't know, right? Just speak to us. You're a freelance journalist. Hopefully everyone knows what a freelance journalist is. If not, if you can explain what that is, explain what a freelance journalist is, and just tell people who you do work for, because you do work for not just Bermudian companies, you do work for overseas entities, just so that people have an understanding of where you speak from.
Yeah. So ever since the Bermuda Sun closed, been pretty much working for myself. So, but in Bermuda, I've worked for, in the last year, I've worked for the Bermudian, I've worked for the RG, I've worked for Burr News, I've done some work for Bermuda Sports and Ross Macau. I'm leaving some, Bermuda Media. But I also write for overseas people, mostly Reuters I have a contract with for things that happen in Bermuda. But in the past, I've worked for the New York Times, and I've had stories appear in the LA Times, San Diego Tribune, the Daily Mail, other places in Europe. I mean, when we had the hurricanes a years ago, I can't even remember which one it was. It's 2 years ago. But I had news media outlets from South America and Italy and France calling me to speak to me on the phone after the hurricane and during the hurricane to give an insider's report on it. So
you're everywhere.
So it keeps
doing
me busy.
all the
And that's not even where I earn my most money, because I'm an educator.
Right, in the classroom, right?
Yes. So a lot of people don't know that, but really, when I was in California, I was a teacher and a vice principal of a school, and I did journalism on the side. But when I came back to Bermuda, I was in the middle of the school year after my dad got sick with cancer, and no full-time teaching jobs in February, generally speaking. So I ended up started working for the Bermuda Sun after exposing some plagiarism at another media house in Bermuda.
Gotcha.
Wow.
Quite I didn't realize it was that deep. But sorry, Gils, go ahead.
No worries. So tell us a bit more about your background as a journalist. You mentioned coming back home and starting to work for the Bermuda Sun. How did that kind of get you going?
Well, I've always been doing journalism. It's almost all my life. I started in middle school. They put me in the journalism class, and then I continued that in college. And I actually got to interview Joe Biden when he came to my school in 1984 when he was running for president the first time. So I can now add I've interviewed a sitting president of the United States, or I've interviewed a president of the United States. And when I came back, I was just looking for something to do, and I have a background in religion, so I started writing for the faith section of the Bermuda Sun. But I have a deep love for sports, and I'm wearing my blue today, like all right-thinking people.
There you go.
Blue. Yes.
We appreciate that, Don. We appreciate that.
And I expanded from there. And at the Sun, my responsibilities continued to grow until I was deputy editor for about 6 to 8 years. I don't even remember what it was. And eventually, even after the Sun closed, I was head of the media council for 3 years, which I wish I could get back.
Yeah,
that's a very thankless job. Yeah. But I just dealing with the pandemic. My wife's immunocompromised, so she has 2 autoimmune diseases, and I didn't notice at the end of December of 2019, but in early January, I noticed a story emerging out of China, and I began posting on my Facebook page. And I remember some people going, "Why are you posting about this?" Almost it's like every couple of days I was posting something in January of 2020 about I said, this is something that I'm interested in. This is something I think we need to be concerned about. And sure enough, as the cases grew, and it became a worldwide pandemic, I'd already been deeply involved.
Right.
And I was actually at the first press conference that government held. I think it was like March 2nd. And I believe this is correct. I think besides the CITV people, the only person that's been at more press conferences than me is probably Kim Wilson. I've actually been at more COVID press conferences than Premier, because he's had a few nights off,
right,
family and things, because those things are important. So
yeah,
I've been there, whereas other people have at the Gazette they rotate people, and so.
And you've been there on behalf of just BBC or Burr News and BBC?
Bermuda Broadcasting.
Okay, cool.
Nice. So I want to actually transition into talking about the pandemic. So can you tell us if you feel that journalists' roles have been more important during the pandemic, and why or why not?
I think they are, because even if you look at last night's press conference, when Trevor pushed the health minister on that one question. People want to know the facts, and this is something new. This is not something that we've experienced before. And to be honest, I don't envy the politicians. I don't envy the premier or the health minister, because this has really divided our country. And there's no, you're not going to please everybody, and you're not even going to probably please half the people. Because there are extremes on both sides. There are people who think like there should be a lot more restrictions, and there's people who think we're opening up too soon, and then there's people who are on the opposite side think we should have a different model of how we're treating this and be more into trying to build up our own personal immunity and live healthier lives. So this has just been a tough job. I feel frustrated at times, not having questions answered. I remember like there was one press conference when we had 6 questions instead of 4. I asked a question and didn't get answered, so I asked another question as a follow-up, and that counted as a second question. I still didn't get my answer. I did that for my second question, which actually that counted as my third, and that question didn't get answered. And then I tried to follow that up, and I didn't get an answer again.
Let me stop you, because we definitely want to get into that later, and I've got some questions on how you feel about that. So let me stop, and I'm going to follow up to the question Michaela asked you. The media and news in particular has been heavily criticized somewhat for what people deem one-sided coverage.
Right.
During the entire pandemic. You have, which I think is a great thing. You have Eugene Dean, Dr. Amani Flood, I think Dr. Dowling. You have a couple of doctors that are doing a series with another view. Do you feel that mainstream journalists, have been one-sided, or do you believe that people just have been unwilling to meet with mainstream journalists to speak about the other sides?
Well, it's a little bit of two. I know like some, and this all stems from, I think, the Trump coverage of Trump, where journalists pushed back on falsehoods or conspiracy theories or whatever term you want to use, and they got a lot more aggressive about not publishing things that they didn't feel like were the truth. And a lot of that, or in, like in Trump's case, that he won the election, flat out stating that that's wrong. So it's been a difficult thing. I tried, I'm obviously on the people who are healthy should probably get a vaccine, but I also believe that people have a choice, and I've tried to listen to people from all sides. I've had a lot of private conversations with people, and people send me videos showing the other side, and I've spent probably more than 100 hours watching videos or reading articles that people have sent me who have an alternative view or a different view than what I have, because I want to educate myself and see where they're coming from. People are who maybe aren't in that camp. I know, like when they had the second car rally, one lady was passing out papers with links in it for people to look at and read, and I asked her for a copy, and she wouldn't give it to me. And I'm not doing it to slam her. I was interested in reading what they had to say, but she wouldn't give it to me. And I think like at the second car rally, I know like one journalist said, or one person said to a journalist at the Royal Gazette, "I'm not speaking to you because you're from the Gazette." And I know when Gary Foster Skelton was filming for ZBM, somebody said like, "Get the camera out of my face," and they were back at Gary. So here you are, you're wanting publicity, but at the same time, you're not wanting.
Right.
So thank
you.
To be fair, on Burn News, I did have Dr. Flood, Dr. Pete Talbot, and Dr. Dowling on last week. I've had Mark Pettingill and Courtney Griffith on about the lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
We've listened to other viewpoints because I think I'm right. I'm not sure that I'm right, but I believe that I am. But it's always good not to cut off one viewpoint, because then people get upset because you're not listening to them. And I think that's the main thing, is trying to listen to other people. Now, I know Kale's got
let's move along. We got to get through as many questions. Folks, if you have any opinion, I want to ask the audience while we're talking to Don, what are your thoughts on the journalism during the pandemic? I want to find out what you think of the journalism during the pandemic. Do you think it's been okay? Do you think it's been poor? Do you, would you like to see more aggressive journalism as it relates to the government? Let us know. Go ahead, Kales.
Sure. So let's get back to the questions in the press conference. So how do you handle asking those tough questions and then them not being answered?
Well, it's frustrating. It's absolutely frustrating, because you can ask a question and you, like with the original answer that the premier and the health minister gave last night, they said, well, we put these restrictions in place, which was not answering the question that Trevor had asked. So, and when you push back against it, I can see like the comments online and stuff, and people were going, you have people on both sides saying, well, they answered it, and I'm thinking in my head, no, they didn't answer it. But I can also see other people saying, yeah, go for it. And I got to the point, like, I think about 4 or 5 months ago, I used to read what people were saying, and it's just like all over the place. And some people get really, really upset because they feel like I'm not being aggressive enough. And then I have other people thinking that I am being too aggressive. So it's, again, a situation of you're not going to please everybody, and everyone has their opinion. So
yeah, that's I mean, I always go back to Dr. York Brown when he was on the show last year. He kept saying, it's like, look, in politics, 51% people agree with vote for you, then you get in. You're never going to have everyone agreeing with what you say and do. And I think that's part of, understanding how to live, not just politics or anything. But I want to go back to last night's press conference. Trevor Lindsay of TNN began with a statement, and he was requesting more than 4 questions in press conferences if they're to be held every 2 weeks. What's your position? Because you mentioned it earlier, right, about how your questions were limited. Right. What is your opinion on this kind of imposing a question limit of 4 in a democracy?
I think it's a terrible precedent, but at this point in time, we've seen in the past, like especially like in the Zoom press conferences, after your 4 questions or 6 questions, if you don't answer it, they just cut you off and take you off the screen. So it's what choice you have. I know, like sometimes ZBM wants me to be a bit more aggressive and push through that 4th question, but if they're going to cut you off, there's a balance there. Although it makes them look bad if they do so, and people get upset. But I remember, like, the first time they told us when we were going to be limited to 6 questions, we were also told at that point in time that all the media should get together and go over our questions with each other, so to make sure that we have different ones.
That's not how it goes.
So it's like, I'm not working for the Gazette, so I'm not going to sit down and confer with them the questions that I'm going to ask ahead of time just to make sure we have different ones. So like now I've got a list of questions. So like I start working on my questions for the next press conference. I've already started working on. I've already got 2 questions down. So by the time the next press conference rolls around, I already have a list of them, and I'll discuss it with the station, and we'll decide on what the final 4 questions will be. But I also have a list. So like I have like last night I had 4 questions, and I had 2 extra questions that were on my list just in case the other 2 were asked, and 2 of them were asked. So I had 4.
So you had backup, right?
I had backup. So it's just like, but I've had some nights for press conferences where I start the day with 22 questions. Like and nobody wants me to ask 22 questions. Let's be honest.
No, but I mean more than 4. More than 4.
Well,
no,
especially like after every 2 weeks. But Well, to be fair, government says they'll answer all your questions if you send them in anyway. So it's not a press conference that you can answer. And so if you really wanted to ask those questions, you could still do it. It just won't be live.
You just can't do it at the press conference. Okay, let's switch gears just a tiny bit. So I know that you are big into social media. We worked together at Bermuda Sun doing a lot of online stuff before it became really popular. What do you feel the role of social media has played in, spreading information and misinformation during the pandemic?
I spread a lot of misinformation. And I have a lot of very longtime friends who are very conservative Republicans in the United States. And they will publish something without looking at it. And these are people who I consider to be intelligent, who've gone to university. And it's just like they'll post something like, let's say Antifa was involved, and there was Antifa who January 6th at the U.S. Capitol invaded it. And the one particular one that stood out to me was they were saying, oh, this guy was a Black Lives Matter protest. And it was the guy with the horns.
Yes.
QAnon shaman.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. And they said these other two guys are on an Antifa website. So like I went and did the research, and the two guys that are on the Antifa website were on there because they were so conservative, and Antifa was pointing them out. I think one of them was a Proud Boy, or they may have both been Proud Boys, and that's why they were on the Antifa website. And QAnon shaman, yes, he was at Black Lives Matters protest, but he was counter protesting.
Exactly.
So it's doing the research before posting, and a lot of people they take something from somebody else and they'll post it without doing it. Now I've done that on occasion, and I had to apologize and say I was wrong. In particular, like there was a bus in Biden bus in Texas that was one of the vehicles that was following it was involved in an accident, and Trump supporters were all around it. But like if you went and looked at the video after the initial story, you could see like the Biden follow car ran into one of the Trump supporter cars.
Right.
So that and I was wrong, so I had to admit that I was wrong.
Right, but see, at least you're doing that,
I want to go to a comment because as a follow-up to what Michaela just asked about social media. Philip Trott says, I was going to ask you if you could speak on social media misinformation and how important is it to fact check stuff you get via WhatsApp. Now, when Michaela asked that, the first thing I thought was WhatsApp, right? I legit get so many different things on WhatsApp that I don't even open most of the stuff. But we live in an era where we don't fact check, though. We go with, I've said this on this show for a time. We really don't care for truth. We care what we want to believe and what makes our beliefs. Like if Don, you sit there right now and I say, oh, Cristiano Ronaldo is the best player in the world. If you sit there and say, yeah, I think he's the best as well, I'm going to think you're God. Like that's how it works, right? That's what people don't necessarily want facts and truth. They want to believe what they want to believe. And so if it fits their narrative, that to them is the fact. And I think that's probably part of the challenges. I want to go to Richard Augustus as we close out because we are out of time. He says, seems like if it doesn't fit the narrative, it's pushed in the cancel culture realm or just straight up censored. Media seems very controlled, freedom of the press curtailed. Do you feel that the media in Bermuda is controlled?
No. And I actually had somebody 3 weeks ago was talking about how all the media is getting paid off for the COVID coverage. And I'm going like, where's my money then? and then they said, well, it's your bosses who are getting it. And I'm going, I know a couple of them very well. And it's just like, I don't think they're getting it either. So it's not being controlled by anyone. Like we're all getting paid off by Bill Gates or the big pharmacies or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were, I'm not sure why you'd be sitting here having a conversation with us, but
I got to fulfill my contract till the end.
Oh, there you go, right? Shikarena says, what's it like competing with opinion pieces bloggers who are perceived to be journalists?
I don't feel like I'm competing with them. So it's people are entitled to their opinions, and we're all not going to be the same. And I I'm not going to agree with everybody, and everyone's not going to agree with me. But we've got to stop living in echo chambers and silos where we only listen to one side of the issue. We have to be open to listen to what somebody else says, because if we're not, then how are we supposed to grow as a person, and how are we supposed to grow as a country? People are wrong from time to time. Everyone is. And if you're not investigating and looking and learning, because education doesn't stop when you finish college.
No,
of course not.
Yeah. So it's worth looking at what somebody else has to say, even if it's painful for me to examine what somebody else has to say. I need to be open to that.
Let's end it with this comment. A first-time commenter, TNN Trevor Lindsay, says this government is controlling the media with the limited question and is extremely sad. And I'm just going to, obviously, I'm not one of you all. I'm not a journalist and I'm not in there. But as a person who watches, as a resident, as a concern, I don't like the limited question period. Now, obviously, there has to be, you don't want each journalist, with 6 journalists, having 10 questions each. Obviously, they don't want to be there all night. I get that. But it's the manner, and I think you explained it earlier, Don. You may ask a follow-up, right? Or is it called in Parliament a supplementary? That's what.
Yes.
And then it's counted against you. I honestly, it's not personal for me. I just think it's unfair, not just to the journalists, but to the people of Bermuda, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing, because it's obviously there's a time crunch. Obviously, we can't get every single thing in, but I think it's also the manner in which it's done. To cut off someone off the screen while they're in the middle of asking a question is rude, and it does wreak control. So I get the time thing, and I also appreciate that you brought up you can email in questions and they'll answer you back. But it's
hopefully,
right. But
most of the time it's true, but sometimes it takes a long time to get an answer back.
Yeah, I remember those days. But the thing about it is perception is reality. So if it's being perceived as control, that's what people are going to think it is. That's just how it goes.
Yeah. Well, Don, honestly, thank you for this. I really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation, especially following the press conference that we had last night. You're always open, always, easy to get in touch with. And I will say this, if nobody else would, I do appreciate and understand the work that a journalist has to do. And I wanted to touch on this, not specifically, but Dexter Smith, the editor of the Royal Gazette, who was actually the first guest on the first episode of the Daily Hour. He shared an article earlier this year, and I really hope I can ask him to find it and share it with everyone. But it was basically the mental state of a journalist. We speak about mental health, but we never ever think about the mental space of people in media and journalism that are trying to do the job. They're dealing with it not just from the perspective where they may be being controlled or attempted control by the government per se or big corporations, but also the lack of trust from the people, right? So it's so many different angles. So it's a thankless job. People don't really get it. So thank you for what you're doing, and just keep pushing, because the public want the answers. And we, whether it's Maya, yourself, Trevor, Owen Barnes, look, we're watching to see what you can get out of them besides what they offer prior to the question. So thank you for trusting the platform, having a conversation, and hopefully we'll have you back again sometime.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks much.
Don. Nice to see you.
Yes. I'll come down to the airport and eat you lunch someday when I'm allowed.
Eat a lunch. All right.
That's good.
All right. Talk soon, Don. I just want to say on Trevor, folks, we're open. We've had Maya on. We've had Dexter Smith. Thanks to Don for coming on. We're actually going to have Trevor Lindsay on as well in the coming weeks. So stick with us for that. You don't want to miss that conversation with Mr. Lindsay. Often criticized for the way he reports, but people keep going there. Don't go anywhere. We're going to take a quick break, Daily Play, and we'll be sharing something with you. Don't go anywhere.
Tune Tune in to the Full 100 Radio every Tuesday through Sunday at 7 p.m. Bermuda time as we bring you the love, romance, sexiness with nighttime jams. Only on your station for conversations and entertainment. The Full 100 Radio. Download the app available for Android and Apple devices.
All right, folks. Thanks again to Don Burgess. Again, folks, if you enjoyed that conversation, very, very interesting conversation. Obviously, Michaela has been a journalist, been in that space. Kales, real quick, first off, if you enjoyed that conversation, found it helpful, don't forget to show us some love, love. If you found something funny or something made you cry and sad the way the journalists are being treated, please give us a thumbs up, a love, a like, show us some appreciation. Michaela, as a journalist, how do you feel when you watch those press conferences?
Honestly, I get frustrated because I think most Bermudians don't actually understand the role of a journalist and don't understand how difficult it is. I feel like we are very critical of our journalists in Bermuda, and we shouldn't be because they are doing their best. I've been threatened. I've been harassed. It's definitely a thankless job. So I commend all of them for showing up and dealing with that sort of environment.
Yeah, indeed. And I just remember it was the protest that I believe only Dr. David Chapman showed up at. And I remember watching Maya on her live down there at it, and the courage that it takes to go out and do that. I didn't think, and a young lady that it takes to do that. I commend journalists for doing it. All right, it's Daily Play time. The Daily Play brought to you by Heineken Zero. Great taste and no alcohol, folks. Get yourself a refreshing cold Heineken Zero today. All right, here we go. It's a song. Help Michaela out. She's going to get it from the first sentence, folks. She's going to get it. Quote, here's the song. Help her out. Feelings so deep in my feelings. No, this ain't really like me. Can't control my anxiety.
Ooh, feelings are touching the ceiling. I can't remember the words, but it's LMA. Ooh, I can't remember the words.
She got half right. What's the name of the song?
Buddha.
All right, she got it. She got it.
Buddha. Yes, that's the song.
I think that was too easy, folks. I think that was too easy.
I couldn't remember the next word, so it was halfway easy.
All right, Kales. Congrats on that one. It is Boot Up LMA. Just want to go. We're gonna do something new on the show on this day, and on this day in 1944, folks. George Stinney was executed. Who is George Stinney? He in South Carolina. There were two white girls, 11-year-old Betty June Beneker and 7-year-old Mary Emma Thames, were found dead. They had failed to return home the night before. Police arrested George Stinney, then 14, and his older brother Johnny for the murders. Johnny was released, but George was held and charged for the murders. He became the youngest person in the history of the United States to be executed. In 2004, the case was reopened, and in 2014, the conviction against Stinney was vacated, and was determined by the court that he had not received a fair trial. Keep in mind, there were 83 days between his arrest and the day he was executed. Wow. On this day in history. All right, so June 16th, 1944, a black child, George Stinney, at 14, was executed. On that note, Kales, you've got some daily inspiration for us, right?
I've got some inspiration. This is from Richard Branson. There is no greater thing you can do with your life and your work than follow your passions in a way that serves the world and you.
Oh, I love that one. Passions. Any final words before we head out, Kales?
Just have a great day, guys. Slow down because it's raining. Don't get all stressed out because the car in front of you is creeping at 2 miles an hour. Just be grateful you're alive.
Indeed. And thanks again to our partners, Medical House One Communications and Linda's, for ensuring that we're able to do this with you on a daily basis. If you haven't already, please be sure to like and follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Don't forget to also subscribe to our YouTube channel. As always, we appreciate you, we love you, and we thank you for making us part of your daily routine. If all goes well, we'll be back to do this again with you tomorrow. She's Michaela Ian. I'm Jamel Hartman. My friends, make it a great day.
Cheers.